All right, everybody. So welcome back uh, to the new lesson here, and we're going to continue with chain rule, and that's part two. And this time I'm going to focus on trigonometric functions. Here is the review of the chain rule, okay? And I also included the Leibniz notation of chain rule, and this notation is so important. And Leibniz notation not only is very useful, but also later on for those of you who are continuing with the math education and university second, third, fourth year mathematics courses in differential calculus, including differential equations and integral calculus. It just comes so handy when you have the Leibniz notation. And Leibniz notation is very simple. Dy dx, which represents the rate of change of y in respect to x, is dy du, which is a new value, or we can call it a gx, that's a du, and then of course you have to take the derivative of that function in respect to x. That's what we did, the g prime of x. That's what this is, okay? So the dy du represents the f prime of g of x, and then du dx represents the g prime of x, and that's what the Leibniz notation is. Okay, now let's go through and deal with two questions in trigonometric functions that we're going to use chain rule to solve for the first derivative. Here's the first question: y equals to sine of x squared, and notice that x squared is in a bracket, okay, on its own. So according to the chain rule, the first thing we have to deal with is that we just have to think of it as a sine of an angle. So what is the derivative of a sine? I wrote it here as a reminder. Sine of x, derivative of sine of x is cos x. Okay, so we can go ahead and start by saying that y prime, the first part of that, it is cos of x squared. But then the chain rule says we have to multiply that by du dx, or g prime of x. In this case, x squared is your du dx that has to happen, or the u function. Now, sometimes you could actually say this is, you can set that equal to u equals to x squared, and then what that is, that you have to multiply that by u prime, okay, or du dx. Now we can set that up and go ahead do that. So let's do that. Cos of x squared, and what is u prime? U prime is x squared, so the derivative of x squared is times 2x. All right, so once we have that, we can go ahead and simplify. Now usually we bring in the non-trigonometric term or expression to the front, so that would be 2x, and then times it by cos squared, and that is the answer to our first example where we took the derivative of sine of x squared function, where x squared is inside a bracket. All right, let's look at another question. Here is example number 2. We have y equal to sine squared x, which is equivalent to sine x all squared. Okay, so which is different. Be aware, this is different function than sine of x squared, where x squared is inside of the bracket. Be aware of that, okay? It's a common trap, common mistakes that students make. So these are two separate, totally different functions. All right, we want to find the first derivative of that. We're going to differentiate it, and we are using right here again sine of x, ddx of sine of x equal to cos x. We're going to use that. We can also use the concept of u function. So if you want to, we can set that up as a u function first. So let u function be sine of x. So y right here, the y function, the original function is y equal to us squared, which is sine of x squared. Okay, so now we want to find y the first derivative is. So according to the chain rule, first we got to deal with the u function. So this becomes 2 times u, and then times, and then you have to multiply it by the derivative of u, and that's u prime. Now another way of writing that is du dx. So that's another way of writing it. So you can write it as y prime is equal to 2u times du x. Okay, that means you have to take the derivative of what is inside, and inside is sine of x. So let's go ahead and do that. So y prime equals 2u times, and then what is the derivative of sine of x? Derivative of sine of x is cos x. All right, so here it is. So multiply that by cos of x, and now we're going to go ahead and replace u. So y prime equals to 2 times sine of x, because that was u, times of x. And then finally, we just put them together, and here it is. This is the derivative of y equal to sine squared x. All right, and we used the chain rule to do that. If you found this useful, subscribe, like, and leave a comment below in the description. Especially let me know what type of a topic or lessons you want me to go over, and I will be more than happy to do that. All right, until next time. Just a reminder that I post 2 videos a week, at least 2 videos a week. So when you subscribe, you get access to the new videos when I upload immediate, and then go through the lessons from all the grades from grade 9 and to first year calculus. All right, take it easy.